So hello, happy Monday. We are going to continue on with percents this week, and we're going to do a review of percent equations. And then we're going to move on to calculating sales tax. And we can use those percent equations to help us whenever we're calculating sales tax of an item. So I know in the past few weeks, I've just been having you put your answers in the chat. If you would rather turn on your microphone and answer that way instead of typing in the chat, that is fine too. You guys don't have to use the chat the entire time, but completely up to you. Let me go ahead and share. And let's get started. All right, so percent equations review. We can use equations to help us solve problems that involve percents. The words in the percent problem give us clues for how it should be written. So we learned this last week, and I did not calibrate. Oh, it doesn't. I always forget to do that. So remember last week we learned that the word what tells us that we're going to put in a letter or a variable that stands for that unknown number. Usually we'll use an X or a Y. It can be any letter though, but X and Y are the two most used ones. The word is tells us we're going to put an equal sign right where that is located in the problem. Of tells us we're multiplying something. So anytime you see the word of, you're going to put in the multiplication symbol. And if we have a percent, we convert it to a decimal. And remember, we do that by dividing by 100, which means we are just moving the decimal 2 spots to the left, okay? So hopefully that refreshes your memory a little bit from last week. And let's do an example, and we're going to do a couple more after that. So I'm going to do this first example, and then I'm going to have you do the next one. So what number is 20% of 50? So if I remember back up here, what tells me I need a variable? So where what number is in this problem, I'm just going to write an X, okay? Because we don't know what that number is. So X is going to stand for that number. Is tells me we're going to put an equal sign. 20%, we have to convert to a decimal. So I'm going to take 20 divided by 100. And when I do that, I'm going to move this decimal that we never write at the end of a whole number and move it 2 places left. So 20 over 100 is the same as 0.20. Of tells me we're going to multiply. And then we just bring 50 down because it is a number already there for us to use. So my equation reads X equals 0.20 times 50. That is the percent equation. This right here is the percent equation. X equals 0.20 times 50. So if you have a problem that, or a question that asks you to write the percent equation, this is what I'm looking for. X equals 0.20 times 50. Not an answer, just the equation. So if you already did your warm-up and you gave me an answer and not the equation, you didn't read the directions or follow the directions carefully. And now I can solve this. So we want to know what X is equal to. And I'm going to take 0.20 times 50. So 50 times 0.20 That's going to be zeros, 0, 10. And in my problem, I have 2 numbers behind the decimal point. So in my answer, I have to have 2 numbers behind the decimal point. So 20% of 50 is 10. Any questions about that one? No. All right. So now what I would like you to do, real quick, is I would like you to write percent equations for these 2 problems. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do that. I don't want you to solve it. I just want the equation right now. Just the equation. All right, so what do we get when we write the percent equation for this first one? 16 inches is 35% of what? How would you write that equation? "16 inches is 35% of what?" Okay. Yariel says 16 equals 0.35x times y. You have one too many variables, but if you take off everything after the parentheses, Yariel, so everything after x actually, and you'll have it correct. So he knows that 16 is just a number we're going to bring down. Is means equals. 35% as a decimal is 0.35. And of what tells us we're going to multiply times x. And we can say times x or just x at the end. So that would be our percent equation. All right, good job, Yariel. All right, what about the second one? What is 103% of 127 tons? How would you write that one as an equation? All right. Yariel, take a look at your decimal real quick. Remember, whenever we divide by 100, we move the decimal 2 spots to the left. You moved it 3. So how would you rewrite that decimal? Right, 1.03. So this would be our percent equation. X equals 1.03 times 127. So a good rule of thumb, if our percent is greater than 100, its decimal will always start with 1 point something, okay? So if the percent is greater than 100, your decimal is always going to be 1 point something, like 1.03, 1.25 if it's 125%. Okay, so that's a good trick to remember whenever you're converting decimals. Just put the decimal after the 1, okay, or the 2 or whatever it is. Because if it's like 200%, then it would start with a 2. So let's change this to with a whole number instead of with a 1. Okay, because if it's 400%, it's not going to start with 1. It's going to start with 4. Okay, does that make sense? All right. Any questions about writing percent equations? All right, let's move on to sales tax then. So sales tax is a percentage of the selling price of a good or service, which is added to the price. So we need to make sure that when we are working with sales tax problems, we know exactly what the question is asking, because it may just ask, what is the sales tax? Or it may ask, what is the total with tax? If it is the total with tax, we are going to add it to the cost, okay? So adding to the price, we're going to look for things like total with tax, okay? So an example, a desk sells for $90 and is subject to a 6% sales tax. What is the total cost with tax? Now, since it is with tax, this tells me that I am adding $90 plus whatever 6% tax is. Okay, so I'm going to do $90 plus 6% of 90, okay, to find the answer to this question. So when I write this, I might look at it as what is $90 plus 6% of 90, okay? So this is what we're trying to find. What is $90 plus 6% of 90? And this is going to help me write my equation. So if I go back to what we just reviewed, what tells me I'm using a variable is equals. We know $90 plus, that makes sense. And now we have this 6% of 90. So when I write 6% of 90, I need to change 6% to a decimal. And that is 0.06, because I move that decimal point 2 to the left. Put a 0 in the empty spot. Of tells me multiply. And 90. So we're looking for 90 plus 0.06 times 90. Okay. So what is 0.06 times 90? What is 0.06 times 90? $5.4. So now I can see I'm doing $90 plus an additional $5.40. So how much am I paying for that desk with sales tax? $95.40. Okay. Any questions about that? Let's do another example together, and then you're going to do one. How did I get 0 or 0.06? So let me do it up here. So when we do changing a percent to a decimal, Yariel, remember it's the same as 6 divided by 100, or the percent divided by 100. And when I divide these two out, all I'm really doing is taking this invisible decimal and moving it 2 places to the left. And you see that there is this empty space right here. That empty space has to be filled with a 0. Okay. Does that make sense, Yariel? Okay. If you have any other questions, please just let me know. All right, let's do another example. Evelyn bought a new smartphone for $499 plus tax. Okay. She was surprised when she got the receipt and saw the tax was $42.42. What was the sales tax rate? So in this question, what are we looking for? Are we looking for the total with tax, the amount of tax, or the percent? What are we looking for? We're looking for the percent. All right, so this one has 2 steps. 499 is the total with tax. Okay. So the total with tax. Oh, never mind. I read it wrong. See, this is why you always reread, because you might read it wrong. So it's $499 plus tax. So $499 is the whole. Okay. 4242 is our the amount after the tax percent. So we would say $42.42 is what percent of 499? Okay, so we're trying to figure out 4242 is what percent of 499. So I'm going to rewrite. $42.42 is means equals. Now, what percent? We don't know this. So we can use any letter. We can use an X. Here we can use the letter P for percent. It's up to you. I'm going to use the letter P to mean percent. of times 499. So here is my equation. 4242 equals P times 499. Any questions about how I got that equation? So think back to previous weeks. When we have our variable that we're trying to solve for times a number, the 499 is called a coefficient, and they go together. So I can't just add or subtract it to get P by itself. I have to do the opposite operation to break 499 and P apart. So what is the opposite operation again of multiplication? Divide. And if I divide this side by 499, I have to divide $42.42 by 499 because it is proportional. We have to keep things even and balanced. So what we do to one side of the equal sign, we have. So what is $42.42 divided by 499? And round it to the hundredths place. So what answer do you get? It should be a decimal. $42.42 divided by 499. Check what you did, Gabriel. Okay, and what's the number after the 8? Give me that one too. Sorry, I meant thousandths place. I said hundredths. 5. So 0.085. Is 0.085 a decimal or a percent? It's a decimal, but we're being asked to find the percent. So what percent? So what would I do to 0.085 to change it to a percent? How would you change 0.085 to a percent? Change the decimal to 2 spots. Which way? Are we going left or right? Okay, we're going to move it 2 places to the right. Why? Why do we move it 2 places right? No, you're correct. It's 2 places. So here's what I want you to think about. When we change a percent to a decimal, what do we do? When we change a percent to a decimal, what do we do? Okay, why do we move it 2 places to the left? What operation are we doing? Division. So whenever we change a percent to a decimal, we divide by 100. So to go the other way, to do decimal to a percent, we are going to multiply by 100. So if I'm multiplying by 100, that moves my decimal 2 places to the right. So percent to decimal, we divide. Decimal to percent, we multiply. Okay, any questions? Okay. All right, you have one practice problem I want you to do, and then we'll talk about what you're doing the rest of the day. All right, if the sales tax rate is 7.25% in California, how much would you pay in Los Angeles for a pair of shoes that cost $9? So what I want you to do is tell me what the percent equation would be. And then once we know that, I'm going to have you figure out the answer. Okay, so first I want you to tell me, what would the percent equation be? All right, you're close, Gabriel. You forgot to do one thing to your percent. What did you forget to do? And you also forgot one more thing too. Okay, you forgot to change it to a decimal. Okay. I'm going to give you just a little bit of help on this. So the first example we did, we're right that we're finding what x is equal to. We know we're going to pay at least $39 for these shoes, okay? But we're adding the sales tax. So we need to add 7.25% times the total cost, or the subtotal. So 7.25 as a percent, we move it 2 places, put a 0 in the blank spot, so 0.0725 times 39, okay? Because we know we're paying this much, we need to figure out what this is in order to solve, okay? So this right here is our percent equation, all right? So let's solve 39 plus 0.0725 times 39. What do you get for the cost of the shoes? And round to the nearest cent. Gabriel, I think you didn't. I think you used 7.25 instead of 0 or 0.0725. That makes a big difference. Monica, check your math. You're off, unless you typed in the wrong number, because you're off by about $1. Okay, what's confusing about the equation, Yariel? You went the wrong way. It's 4183. So you were close, Monica. Okay. Is there anyone else who feels like Yariel, like you don't know how I got the equation? All right, let me go over it real quickly. All right. So I'm going to pull out things, Yariel, that I know. Okay. We know there is a 7.25% tax. We know the shoes cost $39. And we want to know how much we would pay with these two factors, the 7.25% and the $39. So we want to know what is $39, okay, because we're going to pay $39 regardless. So we know that we have to put that in there. Plus the amount of tax that we're going to pay on these shoes. So plus 7.25% of 39, okay? Because we don't know what this dollar amount is yet. We just know that we're going to pay the $39 plus whatever 7.25% of that is. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so now I can use this to write my equation just like we have been doing the past few days. So we know what is going to be our variable, is going to be our equals. 39 we're just going to bring straight down because we don't have to do anything to that. Plus, and then if I take this right here and put it in parentheses, I know of means multiply, 39 again just comes straight down, and then I changed 7.25 to a decimal, so 7.25 divided by 100. This right here divided by 100 tells me to move my decimal 2 places, and we have to put a 0 in that open space. Okay, so 0.0725. And that's how I got the equation. Does that help you, Ariel? Okay, so sometimes it's better to write out in words exactly what the question is asking you to find, especially with percent equations, because then you can just change everything to match. So is to equals, of to multiply, to get the equation, okay? Any more questions about this? So let's talk about what you're doing for the remainder of class. All right, so your assignment today, you only have one other than the warm-up, and it is this sales tax assignment. Sales tax is coming. So the first page just gives you some information about sales tax. Read through it. And then you have 2 slides to complete. The first one shows 8 states and the different sales tax added to every dollar on a purchase in the year 2016. So this is as of 2016. And all you need to do is complete the table. So all you need to tell me is in Indiana, if you have a 7% sales tax, how much tax would you pay for a $10 item? How much tax would you pay for a $100 item? So I don't want the total, I just want the amount of tax. So that is going to be 7% times whatever the dollar amount is, and tell me what that total is. Okay, so that's the first table, or the first page. And then the second slide, or third slide, I guess, you have a table, an equation, and a graph, and you need to use those to answer the 4 questions that are on that page. Any questions about your assignment? If there are no questions,